Good evening. I think it is close enough to 5 o'clock that we can begin. I appreciate each of you being in attendance tonight for our special called board meeting of the Oconee County Board of Trustees. As we begin, I would ask you if you would like to join me in a moment of silence, please. Amen. And now if you would stand with me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I would like to get an approval of tonight's agenda, August 31st, 2021, special called meeting. Do I hear?
Approve the agenda.
Okay. Second. All right. I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor? Okay. All right. At this time, we will have public comment. Now, public comment in our meeting is limited to 30 minutes. We have speakers that have signed up, and each speaker has a limit of 5 minutes. However, we do have a number who have been placed on a waiting list to be heard. So I encourage you as speakers, if you don't use your 5 minutes, or if someone has just said what you are thinking, I encourage you to keep your remarks as brief as you can so we can hear as many as we can tonight. Now, there is a microphone at that stand there, so our public hearing will be held, our public comment will be held there tonight. And Mr. Hanby will have the yellow cards. Now, if you take your full 5 minutes, at 4 minutes you will get a yellow card. And at 5 minutes, your time is up, and he will wave a red card, and we ask you that you stop at that point. All right, Ms. Bay, would you like to call our first speaker?
Jamie Donnelly.
It's on. It is, thank you.
Hello, my name is Jamie Donnelly. I have a son in 4th grade at Kiwi Elementary and a daughter in 6th grade at Walhalla Middle School. I'm here to give a voice to my children who suffered terribly having to wear masks all day in school last year. Masks are detrimental to children's learning, understanding, and it is devastating to their mental and emotional health. Last year, every single day, I heard from my kids about being harassed and shamed about slipping their mask off their face for even a moment. My son was made on numerous occasions to walk laps instead of socializing at recess as punishment for taking his mask down to breathe. His friends turned into mask wardens, turning on and telling on each other for mask infractions. It got to the point that both my children begged to stay home from school. They hated the stifling feeling of being masked. My son would cry every morning. He used to love school. Last year, when our governor signed the executive order banning the enforced masking of our children, it made all the difference in the world. My children were free to learn and socialize normally. They were happy to go back to school. At this point, anyone over the age of 12 can be vaccinated and can choose to wear a mask if that makes them feel safer. But masks are not effective at stopping COVID. I believe the school district needs to focus its energy elsewhere, such as deeper cleaning protocols or hand washing and sanitizing throughout the day. We need to stop subjecting our children to this dystopian nightmare. Thank you.
Carrie Ann Unsworth.
Hello. Thank you guys for offering the public 5 minutes to speak. I appreciate it. I want to thank Superintendent, and I know my mama heart's going to cry while I'm up here, and I'm so sorry. I just want to thank you for how well you have led us. We are a district that is set apart. I have friends with children that live all over the state, and I have a sister that lives in Arizona. And I just want to thank you guys for doing such an exceptional job in the last 18 months as we navigate uncharted territory. So I just want to honor our school district and thank them for all that they've done for us and how well they've led. I believe that we are set apart. I'm here to ask that we look at the science and ignore the narrative. And we know that we only have about 8 months of science to look at right now, so we're all operating on a very limited basis of what we know. I did my own personal Facebook poll today, and I had asked, mandate masks, yes or no? I have started sharing information in the past week and a half in order to grow what we know and not voice my own opinion, not make any political statements, but to share information. My social media has blown up, but people message me privately because they're afraid to say what they feel or believe for getting attacked. I stand before you absolutely fearless, as a mom, as a wife, and also as a teacher. I want us to fight the right fight, and I want us to come together and make a decision that allows us to be better together. The results of my Facebook poll, there were 15 yeses and 13 no's. It was almost split down the middle. Everyone that I sought counsel with this week, those continue to be the results no matter what school district I was asking people for their comments. We are split down the middle when it comes to should we mask or not mask. Should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? Should I get a vaccine? Should I not get a vaccine? We aren't fighting the right fights. And I'm here to stand before you today to ask you, no matter what the outcome is from this decision, that you would allow us as parents to work better with you together so that our teachers are healthy, our students are healthy, and we as parents are healthy, and we can healthy financially support our kids and not have to worry that we're going to have to bring them home from school so that we can work. I also believe Revelation 12:11 says that Jesus overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony. I'm going to give you my own personal testimony today of what I know has happened in my own family and in my friends' families that have allowed me with their permission to share their story. Delta is a variant that is not like what we fought last year. I honored every rule. I honored the authority. I have a mask on now, and I normally don't wear one. I believe in following your leadership, and I believe in following your authority, and that is what I teach my children, and that is why they are well behaved in their classrooms. But I can tell you that even wearing a mask, I still caught the Delta variant. I got very sick. My whole family got sick. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law were staying in our house. We were not out and about going to large gatherings, and they were vaccinated, and we got sick. I'm not saying that we got sick because they made us sick. What I'm saying is the people in my house who were following all the protocol, wearing a mask, still got the Delta variant. We have new research from the CDC that tells us the Delta variant is a bit different shaped in particle size than the COVID particles that the mask did protect us from last year. Last week, the CDC also published that the safest mask to wear is an N95 mask. We have a lot of data now that the N95 leads to significant health compromises, and thank God our children won't have to wear those. I have 1 minute left. I knew it would go by fast. So I want to share that the Delta is very contagious. I don't have a lot of confidence, nor do some medical organizations, and even Pharmacia like Pfizer have made statements that masking is probably not going to prevent the Delta variant from spreading. And so I want to focus on the health and well-being of my children. And I will tell you that last Monday I stepped in the classroom to lead 240 college students. And I'm physically sick on Mondays and Fridays when I teach because I can't breathe. We don't get a mask break because it's a code of conduct violation. We're inside a facility. And the conviction that fell on me, because all last year, this is how I motivated my children to keep their mask on. I said, suck it up. And now, after 1 week in the classroom wearing a mask for 3 hours straight, y'all, it's only 3 hours. My kids are in a mask for 8.5 hours when they go to school. And I can't even do it. If you go forward with a mandate, thank you so much, I'm going to wrap up. If you go forward with a mandate, can we please work better together in a way that creates strong solutions to prevent the spread, keep our schools open, but please, if you do it, put the rest of the COVID protocol in place.
If you will, the people who are watching the live stream have let me know quickly that if you hold the mic a little bit farther away from your mouth, they can hear better on the live stream.
Andrea Smith.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Andrea Smith, and I am a mother of these two outstanding young men back here. They attend Walhalla Middle and Walhalla High School, and I am here today to speak on their behalf. First of all, I realize that many people are concerned about COVID-19, and I'm not here to dismiss or ridicule those concerns. I am here to discuss a sensitive subject that I'm trying to be open-minded about. I truly want to understand other points of view. My personal belief, and I'm sure the beliefs of many others here today, is that we should be allowed to evaluate our own situation and take the appropriate precautions for ourselves and our children. I'm sure that by working together instead of against each other, we should be able to find reasonable solutions. But the first step is letting our voices be heard. Now let's talk about this virus. Depending on whose numbers you use, COVID-19 has a 98.2 to 99% survival rate. That rate was calculated before the CDC admitted that 94% of the deaths attributed to COVID were actually caused by something else. It was also before the FDA admitted last spring that the cycle counts on the PCR tests for COVID were set way too high, causing many false positives. Recently, the FDA did a level 1 recall, the most serious kind, on some of the rapid PCR tests because the test can't distinguish between COVID-19, the flu, or even the common cold. This basically means that the number of cases and the number of deaths has been greatly inflated. By the way, there is no special test for the Delta variant. They can't tell you what variant somebody has. The new case rate is also hard to pin down because the CDC is now counting anyone who has not had both shots or their last shot was less than 2 weeks ago as an unvaccinated person. They are not counting them as partially vaccinated or newly vaccinated. They are counting them as unvaccinated. This is interesting to me because most adverse reactions to vaccines occur within the first 2 weeks. Just another reason that we cannot trust the numbers we see on the news. Now, I'm not saying that no one has been sick. I'm saying that fraudulent numbers are being used to generate fear and push agendas instead of helping people. We have reached the point where we are doing things just to be doing something to make other people feel better. And while we are busy virtue signaling, who is helping those that need real treatments? Later, when people keep getting sick, do we just throw our hands up and say we did the best we could just because we did something? That is ridiculous. It is also not harmless. I have seen many tests using OSHA monitors show that the air quality in masks quickly reaches dangerous levels, especially when worn close to the face, as they would need to be. I have also seen many tests showing the masks are stopping little to no particulates. Viruses are extremely tiny. If these masks can't stop drywall dust, they certainly aren't stopping a virus. Not to mention the fact that wearing a mask all day creates the perfect environment for breeding bacteria that lead to bacterial pneumonia. That was a leading cause of death during the Spanish flu in 1918. If masks are forced on my child and gets pneumonia, is the school going to take care of the medical bills? If you force something, I believe you should be responsible for the consequences. I know there is concern for high-risk people in the community, and I share that concern. But we should be focusing our attention on real solutions for these people. But let's not forget the children that will be harmed by forced masking. It is hard enough for a healthy child to be wearing the mask all day. But what about those that are hearing impaired? My husband is nearly deaf, and he needs to read lips to communicate. He cannot clearly understand what anyone is saying when they're wearing a mask. The sound is muffled, and he can't see their mouth. This has been very difficult for him as an adult. Imagine how isolating that must be to a hearing impaired child with masks obscuring faces. These children can no longer read lips or see facial expressions. It would be so depressing for any child to not be able to interact with his or her peers. We cannot forget that for every action there is a cost. In closing, I want to ask, where does this all end? How many freedoms do we give up before people stay up and say enough is enough? I'm saying it now. Masks are more about control than help. Every time we allow freedom to be taken away, it makes it easier for those in power to take the next one. It is the parents' responsibility to make these decisions for their children, not the schools. And keep in mind, it's my understanding that mask mandates are not currently legal in South Carolina public schools. I have contacted Governor McMasters and Attorney General Alan Wilson and asked them for their input on this matter. Thank you for your time.
Justin Kelly.
Everybody got me? Is it good? All right, my name is Justin Kelly. I'm not much of a public speaker, so everybody bear with me. My daughter is 8 years old. She's a third grader at Fair Oak Elementary. I believe the mask mandates are cruel to our young children. Adults are supposed to ease their fears, and we're supposed to reassure them that nothing's hiding under the bed. But instead, we're frightening them into believing that they're being stalked by an invisible monster lurking in the air. Another year of mask wearing will scar some of them psychologically and physically. According to a team of Italian professors who warned that prolonged pressure from the elastic straps could leave young children with permanently protruding ears. By hiding teachers' lips and muffling their speech, mask wearing makes it harder for young children to develop linguistic skills and prevents children with hearing impairments from lip reading. Unable to rely on facial cues, teachers and students of all ages are more likely to misinterpret, which is also one particularly acute problem for children with autism. How are children supposed to develop social skills when they can't see one another's faces, sit together, or play together? Researchers from the University of Witten in Germany established an online registry for parents to report on the side effects of mask wearing. Among nearly 18,000 parents who chose to respond, more than half reported that masks were giving their children headaches, making it difficult for them to concentrate. More than one-third cited other side effects: increased reluctance to go to school, unhappiness, malice, impaired learning, drowsiness, and fatigue. And on the subject of unhappiness, the CDC study documents rise in adolescent suicide attempts during the pandemic. The increase started in May of 2020, with a particularly alarming spike in girls aged 12 to 17. February to March of 2021, visits for suspected suicide attempts were over 50% higher among young girls in this age group from the previous year, and 4% higher in young boys. The study examined data from over 70% of the country's emergency departments across 49 states. It also notes it likely represents an undercount of suspected suicide attempts because those with less severe injuries may have avoided seeking emergency care due to fear of the pandemic. Masks are breeding grounds for infections, bacteria, mold, and fungi, which is why the CDC recommends cloth masks should be washed when it gets dirty, or at the very least daily. The CDC also advises washing your hands anytime you take your mask off and then washing again after you put the mask back on. Pretending our children, or even adults for that matter, are taking these precautions is absurd. 4.2 million children have tested positive for COVID. 0.008% have died. 480 kids died from the flu in the 2018-19 season. That's more than died from COVID since this pandemic's even started. Of the total COVID deaths, 94 to 90% 96% had at least one underlying condition. The average underlying condition is 4. 80% were obese. 80% had a vitamin D deficiency. In closing, with a 96% of all COVID deaths having at least one underlying condition, 80% having a vitamin D deficiency, 80% being obese, why are we arguing over masks when they have a minimal effect on preventing this virus? Why aren't we encouraging vitamins, exercise, and getting outdoors? Teaching them not to grow up in a world of fear. No matter what you decide, my daughter will not be subjected to this child abuse of masking. She will continue to breathe the free air as God intended. Anyone who votes in favor of this should feel ashamed, and I will make it my life mission to get you off this school board.
Randy Hamilton.
Hey y'all, I'm trying real hard not to be sick, so just kind of bear with me. Okay, I am the mother of 4 children, 3 that are currently in the school district. And I want to speak to y'all today on behalf of the parents of Oconee County that feel like I do and don't have a chance to speak. And I promise you there's more than just a few of us. And we're tired. You've taken 2 school years from our children and are headed down the path to ruin a third. And for what? The cold, the flu. I want to quote an unbiased study, and just in case y'all need it, I printed the links off for you so you can read it yourself if you like. A tremendous number of government and private policies affecting children are based on one number, 335. That is how many children under 18 have died with a COVID diagnosis in their record, according to the CDC. Yet the CDC, which has 21,000 employees, hasn't researched each death to find out whether COVID caused or if it involved a pre-existing medical condition. The study at Johns Hopkins also analyzed 48,000 children under the age of 18 diagnosed with COVID-19 and found a mortality rate of 0 among children without serious pre-existing health conditions. We've been shown, even by the all-knowing CDC, that masks do not help slow the spread in young children. I can also provide you links to that. But if you want your child to wear a mask, then by all means feel free. You have that right as a parent to do what you feel is best for your child. But if the mask worked, then why did you have shutdowns last year? Why were kids sent home left and right last year? The spread is more this year because schools are full. Last year, most of us were virtual. We know the Delta variant is more transmissible than the original variant. But the discriminatory policy of this district is driving cases up. Vaccinated kids and teachers are left in school after close contact, even though it's been proven that vaccinated people contract and spread as easily as the unvaccinated. And what sense does that make? 2 years ago, there were 150 kids out in 1 week because of the flu. There were no mandates, no meetings, no panic, no mobile vaccine units sent to schools, no bribes, no close contact quarantine. Why are children being threatened with lunch detention or bus expulsion for not wearing a mask when, as of today, it's a law that you cannot mandate masks? And the last time I checked, the school board nor the Department of Education or the CDC are governing bodies. 2 7-year-old girls at school were made to walk laps because they were holding hands on the playground like little girls do. They were punished. And does that sound okay to you? If you feel like your cloth mask from Old Navy works to keep your germs in or out, then wear it by all means. But explain to me how all summer long in our county, kids were out living their best lives. We were having cookouts, vacations, lake days with friends, and I know I personally had a house full of kids every day, and there was no huge spike in cases. Why is that? This has to stop. The constant fear-mongering has to stop. The constant testing has to stop. Our children are suffering from an educational standpoint and a mental health standpoint. Our babies zombie walk down the hallway, arms out front. They eat in their classrooms. They're not allowed to hug their friends, and you want to cover their faces again. For what? Our older kids are afraid to sneeze or cough. Everything is now a symptom of COVID. They go to school every single day ready to be sent home again for contact quarantine, which my 100% healthy daughter just experienced a week of for no reason. She has worked her tail off to graduate a year early, and you have stolen her 3 years of high school from her. My 7-year-old cried numerous times last year when I had to tell her to get her mask for school. Mama, I can't breathe in this thing. I can't breathe. Why is that statement ignored when it comes from a child? We have children being bullied by adults about masks and experimental vaccines, and that's a can of worms I'm not going to touch today except to ask you why. Why should any adult in our school system have the right to bully a child? If people were convinced that this jab worked, you wouldn't have to bribe them or shove it in their face constantly. If people saw masks work, you wouldn't have to mandate it. We would just wear them. I say all that to say this. This Delta thing is real. But for our babies, it isn't scary unless you keep making it to be. Stop scaring our kids because we're done with it. We are done with masks being sold to us like it's the all-saving grace, a cure to an end. We are done with our kids missing weeks of school because someone else is sick. And we are done giving all this power to people that don't deserve it. We do not work for the state, and we do not work for the government. They are supposed to work for us, and somewhere along the way that's been forgotten. But we as the parents have found our voices again, and we will not be ignored this time. Thank you.
Sarah Foster.
Good evening. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I will be giving my support for implementing and enforcing mask mandates in Oconee County schools to help slow the current spike in COVID cases. My name is Sarah Foster, and I am the mother of 3 little girls, 2 of whom are old enough to be enrolled at Westminster Elementary. I want to begin by both acknowledging the school board's difficult position and thanking you for trying your best to protect our children. You will never make a decision that will make everyone happy, but I hope you decide to make a decision that will offer the most protection to the most amount of children. I am going to address 2 points when it comes to masking and enforcing mask mandates that are often quoted by those arguing against said mandates. 1, that masks don't work, and 2, that it is the parent's right to determine whether their child should have to wear a mask under the point of the parent knows best for their child. First, that masks don't work. In Protection from COVID-19, the Efficacy of Face Masks by Christoph Hemmer, PD, Dr. Med et al., as published in the Deutsches Arztblatt International on February 5th, 2021, in reference to the efficacy of homemade cotton masks in reducing spread from a COVID-19 carrier, cotton masks have an efficacy of between 49 and 86%, which was dependent on the material the mask was made from. In addition, the use of even a homemade cotton mask protected the wearer by not only reducing the rate of infection, but also the severity of illness. These findings were observed in experimental and practical implications, as well as being replicated using mathematical modeling. We also have anecdotal evidence here in our county. If you compare the school district COVID cases from August 2020 to August 2021 of 8 cases and 0 closures versus our current 374 cases and 45 closures. Are masks 100%? No. Nobody ever said they were. But even on the low end, 49% efficacy is very, very significant. Seat belts only reduce your chance of death by 45% and injury by 50%, as reported by NHTSA. But we can all agree that driving unrestrained is dangerous and irresponsible. Not enforcing universal mask mandates in our schools during a surging pandemic is equally dangerous and irresponsible. Now I would like to address the second point, the parent's right to decide whether a child has to wear a mask at school. According to the South Carolina State Code of Laws, under in loco parentis, school boards can promote rules prescribing scholastic standards of conduct and behavior that must be met by all pupils as a condition to the right of such pupils to attend the public schools of such districts. The rules shall take into account the necessity of proper conduct on the part of all pupils and the necessity for scholastic progress in order that the welfare of the greatest possible number of pupils shall be promoted. When a parent enrolls and sends their child to public school, they are delegating this responsibility to the school. So no, when you enroll your child in public school, you do not get supreme control over what you deem to be in your child's best interests, if those interests do not go in favor of the greatest possible number of students. Allowing parents to send their children unmasked to school puts all the children, staff, and teachers at greater risk of illness and possible death than if they were sent masked. Universal masking is the most effective way to reduce community spread amongst children who are too young to be vaccinated. Finally, if science doesn't persuade you, the legality doesn't persuade you, maybe the monetary implications will. 75 district employees have tested positive in August after only 2 weeks of school. At this rate, how is the district going to afford to pay for all these subs? In addition, 299 students have tested positive. How is the district going to rectify education losses due to kids being out? My third grader currently has 5 kids out from her class of 13. My first grader's teacher is already on quarantine. Can the district afford the consequences that disruptions will have on test scores, which can ultimately affect funding? The answer is no, we can't. Our children can't afford it. Our community can't afford it. Decisions are not being made in the interest of the community and the children of our county as a whole. So now it's time for you to make those decisions for them. Thank you, and God bless.
We only got a minute and a half.
Standing.
Tell me you got a minute, 15.
You have 1 minute.
I see time's short, so I'll keep it short and sweet. This is still America. We still believe in freedom. The parents do still know what's best for their children, not somebody who does not know their children. Time's about up. So what I'm going to say is just short and sweet. We're going to keep this. I'm glad to see this vote. Oconee County parents are waking up. We're paying attention. So whoever raises their hand in favor of this would raise their hand in favor of vaccine mandate as well.
Absolutely.
And with that being the case, whoever raises their hand in favor of this, my personal goal, and that man's, and 70% of Oconee County, that y'all are going to lose your seats. That's what we're going to do. No more games. No more coming here talking on ice and saying, we just want to do our best to help, because we did that. And look where it got. You don't know what's best for my babies. I do. I'm the one that give my life to them, not y'all. So therefore, I am responsible for my babies and their health. So whoever raised their hand for this, it's my goal. Get rid of it.
Tonight, our meeting is only one item on the agenda, and that is to discuss a mask mandate in our school district should the South Carolina Supreme Court decide that such a mandate is indeed within the authority of the school district to enforce. We come here not to argue a political point, but determine how we can best keep our students and teachers safe and provide a face-to-face education to our teachers, for our children. I don't think anyone believes that masks are an answer to the current surge in COVID cases we have seen. However, it's evident that our numbers are growing and something needs to be done. At this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to our superintendent, Dr. Michael Thorsland, to share what is going on in our district right now.
And Ms. Bay, could you pull up the district dashboard? I did want to, first of all, I want to brag on Ms. Dodd, our public information officer. She developed this way of reporting, very transparent. It tells cases amongst employees, students, how many in the last 7 days, and you can see the numbers. We have had a little bit of a lag in reporting. We think we've got that fixed. As of this afternoon, you can see where, and this actually would not have, this would be accurate as of yesterday, so it would not have today's cases in, but you can see we're pushing 500 cases. Last school year, January was the month where we had the most number of positive COVID cases. That was 252. And we've only been in school for 2.5 weeks in August. We started school August 11th in the middle and high schools, August 16th in the elementary schools. and we're already close to double our highest number of cases last school year. So it is a different situation than we were in all of last school year. I will say, from the beginning of this, last summer, of course, the governor, I'm going to take this off just so people can hear me. That was a practical decision.
Yeah. That's how our kids
I understand. I understand. So, from last summer, when we had the opportunity to be open again last summer, the school district of Oconee County opened our schools as much as any school district in the state of South Carolina. Our objective has been to keep our schools open and to keep kids in school as much as possible. Neighboring districts, other parts of our state, were virtual most of the year last year. We were open from day one to the end of the school year. And we kept as many kids in school as we possibly could. Today is very different from a year ago. And I would give 3 reasons that it's a very different scenario right now than it was a year ago. Number one is I do think that the strain of the virus we're dealing with is different. What we're seeing right now is that more kids are being infected, whereas last year at this time it was primarily an adult virus. We are seeing kids spread the virus in school settings. Last year when we quarantined students, very few of those students that we quarantined actually became positive. This year it is spreading in classrooms. There's just no doubt about that. It is a much more contagious strain if the medical experts are correct. So I think that's probably the biggest difference that we see right now from last year. A second difference is society. Just the world is different. Last year at this time, the world was pretty much shut down. We were in schools, but you couldn't go eat at a full capacity restaurant. The Clemson Stadium was only a certain percentage full. This year, it's pretty much wide open. So at 3:30, regardless of what we do in schools, kids can do pretty much what they want to after school's out. I think that's going to limit the effectiveness of really anything we do in school, because I think those 2 things are contributing to the higher case count. A third difference is the mask mandate. We're doing most of what we had implemented last year. Obviously, we've not been able to mandate masks. And as I understand it, we don't have the authority right now to have a mask mandate. I am respectful of government. And if the legislature acted, the way I see government structure in South Carolina is that the legislature has more authority than school boards. They've said no masks at this point. Therefore, I think we would be in violation of law if we tried to enforce a mask mandate. However, there is a case at the South Carolina Supreme Court, which is kind of why we're talking, that could change things. It did change things at the college level, as Ms. Unsworth mentioned earlier. We don't have that option yet. If we do, we need to discuss if masks would be appropriate for our schools. I certainly don't think masks are a silver bullet. I don't think they're going to fix all of the numbers that we see exploding and the number of cases. However, the school district of Oconee County is a subset of state government. We're in place because the state of South Carolina has decided that's how schools are organized and that's how schools are to be administered. It's pretty hard for us as a government body to go against other government bodies. That's why I don't think right now we can enforce a mask mandate. But we also have to listen to the medical experts in our state. And like it or not, in our state, that's DHEC. They give us the medical advice that as a public school district, we should listen to. They made a change last week that made it much more difficult for our schools, and I'll explain this chart here in just a second. But that change, when we started this school year, DHEC had said in a school setting, you only need to quarantine kids if they've been in close proximity of a positive person for 15 minutes in a 24-hour period. And that close proximity was defined as 3 feet, a circle of a 3-foot radius. So if I was determined to be a positive case, you draw a circle around me of a 3-foot radius, and anybody who's been inside that circle for 15 minutes in a 24-hour period gets sent home in quarantine. They changed that last week to say that 3-foot radius only applies if there's a mask, if all the people involved are wearing a mask. The CDC guidance and the DHEC guidance from the beginning of this has been a 6-foot radius. Last year we were operating on a 6-foot radius. This year we've been operating on 3, but they changed that on Friday or Thursday last week to say it goes back to 6 unless everybody's wearing a mask. I did this seating chart just because I'm a visual person. I want people to understand what I'm talking about. So this is a typical classroom setup. It's not every classroom, but it's pretty typical for middle and high school. Desks in rows, teacher at the front of the classroom. I think you can kind of get a visual that would be 25 student desks. All right. Classes don't necessarily have 25 students in them, but 20 is a reasonable number to assume in our school district. So if the orange desk represents a positive case, student goes home, they're testing positive, that inner green circle would represent a circle of a 3-foot radius. That outer green circle would represent a circle of a 6-foot radius. And I don't have a medical background. I was a math teacher. And I can tell you that larger circle is 4 times the area of that smaller circle. And if you just look at numbers there, I've numbered the desks that are around that presumed positive case. And you can see at a 3-foot radius, 2 kids go home quarantined. At a 6-foot radius, 8 kids go home quarantined. And that is the advice of DHEC as of the middle of last week. I go back to what I started with. Our objective in Oconee County is to keep schools open and as many kids as possible in the classroom. Our number of positive cases has gone up significantly. It's unlike anything we saw last school year. But our number of quarantines, and we're not even tallying that every day, but I can tell you I was at a school last week where the number of quarantined students approached 50% of the student body. That's not far from closing the school. I want to keep our kids in school. I want to keep our schools open. So the one reason I would support a mask mandate is not because I think that it's a silver bullet that's going to fix all our problems. I'm not going to try to argue science. Like I said, I'm not a medical person. So some of you say the virus will pass through the openings on the mask. Some of you say it'll work and it'll solve all our ills. I don't believe either. But I can say if we follow DHEC guidance, it will prevent us from sending kids home who are in the 6-foot radius but not in the 3-foot radius. So for that reason alone, I would support doing it because it would keep more kids in school. Last year, we had it in place that we told our teachers, we know masks are not pleasant. We know kids don't enjoy them. And we told teachers that if you get to a place where you think your kids are just tired, stand up, take them outside, take the masks off, take mask breaks. We also did allow last year in those rarer situations where we just have a few kids in class, if you can accomplish 6 feet of spacing, we allowed masks to come off, even in classrooms last year. So we're not at a place where we could even ask you to enforce a mask mandate at this point. But I want as many kids in school as possible. and schools where we're approaching 50% of the students quarantined because of having to close classes and using this 6-foot radius. This is a classroom diagram. Imagine what that would look like on a school bus, with a positive case on a school bus if you draw a 6-foot radius. That's going to take a lot more. It's going to take a lot more students out than what the classroom would do. So I'm not sure we're at we kind of thought that the South Carolina Supreme Court could make a ruling today. They may make one tomorrow. They may not make one. My recommendation, of course, would be if the South Carolina Supreme Court does not change the law that's in place right now, that we go on as we're going on. If they do give school districts flexibility, I think it would be helpful because it would allow us to keep more students in school. And for that reason alone, I would say it's worth
it's cowardly
considering doing it.
Superintendent, I have a quick question for you that I'm sure a lot of parents may have.
Now, I'm sorry. There was a time for public comment. This is the school board's meeting at this point.
Why are we following?
You're welcome to stay and listen, but it is time for us to discuss.
I'm seriously concerned for my child. Mayor, do y'all get to decide for us, for our children, or we have to homeschool them?
What if we just mask? We're not
I'd rather them get sick
I
than
won't be
commit
wearing a mask. I don't
suicide.
care what y'all decide. I will not be wearing a mask.
Those of us that don't want it, can we do virtual learning for our children, or maybe homeschooling?
Then they get isolated with virtual learning. Y'all agreed to not test last year because you went a whole year virtual, and now they've lost a whole year already. We're going to lose another whole year. This isn't fair.
Since this special board meeting was called because we thought there would be a decision by the end of the day, and there has not been.
Doesn't work.
I don't think we're going to be able to make a decision on this tonight, but is there any comment that anyone would like to make before we adjourn?
Yes, I have a few comments.
Okay.
First, Dr. Torslin, I would like to commend the district and the staff, all the nursing staff, for doing such a phenomenal job thus far. I know it's incredibly difficult, but as I've talked to many parents and heard from the constituents in our county, I do have a few questions on this decision when we get to that, if we get to that based on Supreme Court's ruling. If we mask for what's been proposed for the 30 days, and then we, come to October and we unmask, thinking that the numbers are going down, what we've done is kind of inhibit a little bit of that natural immunity. So my fear in this is that we're going to keep the vicious cycle going, and then we're going to be masked until Christmas or further. The questions that I have are to put a plan in place for after the 30 days. And so there's a couple questions that I have. Is there a specific percentage or number that we're hoping to get, back under? Are we going to implement another 30 days if the cases haven't improved? If they continue to rise or even plateau, staying the same, can we conclude that the masks were not effective and remove them? Or if they decline, which is what we hope ultimately, can we conclude that they did work and remove them? Can we reevaluate our quarantine rules based on your scenario here of keeping more kids in the classroom? And then lastly, I watched the whole entire 2 hours of the Supreme Court this morning, and I think the largest concern is how do we enforce this? How do we enforce it in our students, and how do we enforce it in teachers and prevent ramifications on our teachers, because they are going through so much right now that I don't want to put even more of a burden on them. Their job is there to teach, and I do not want them to feel the unnecessary burdens that they've continued to feel over the past year. So again, this is not something that I've taken lightly, and I know you all haven't either, but these are just questions, concerns that I've wanted to state for the record as we enter this decision.
just have a comment, if I could make a brief comment. I think we have heard from both sides of the issue compelling arguments, and I think it has given us a lot of things to think about, and I think that we need to wait until the Supreme Court makes its ruling, then we come back together, we decide on the plan which way to go. But I thank you for coming. I appreciate all of your comments.
Well said.
Anyone else have a comment at this time? All right, I think we have all decided that there's not going to be a decision made on this tonight. But again, I don't think any of us sit up here as medical experts or someone who say, as Dr. Thorsland said, this isn't a silver bullet. But our job is to educate the children of Oconee County, and what we are looking at is not keeping the virus out of the schools. Obviously, that's not possible. But we just want to keep as many children in school as we can. Earlier this year when people were offered virtual options, very few people chose it because I think everyone agrees, regardless of how you feel on the medical field, that children need to be in school. They need that socialization. They learn face-to-face. They need to be in school, and that is our primary wish at this point, is to keep them in school. And we're not going to keep the virus out, but if we can keep more children in school because of the way that masks will help do that, then we have to look at it. We have to look at it. But at this time, until the South Carolina Supreme Court makes a decision, there will be no decision made here tonight. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, meeting is adjourned.
We'll be back in court.
We're going to get held out by the Supreme Court.